Hi, everybody. This is let's scroll this up so we can get to the. This is a supplemental uh, video to lesson 2 of the Four Great Vows class. I decided to replace 2 of the slides from that lesson with 4 slides. And so, as explained here, now the slides um, 213 and 214 are replaced by 213A and B and 214A and B. And these slides focus on uh, the, uh, the these characters here, which are extra characters because they're not. This lesson covers the first of the 4 great vows. In lesson 2, the extra characters are not actually in the official part of the text for this class, but they're made up of components that are either just characters that are rearranged components from these characters, or they're relevant to learning these characters and their components. Well, it should become clear, one hopes. So this is the a summary slide. Now, recall I said that it's slides 213 and 214 are the ones that I replaced with 4 slides. This is 212, the one that came before that, which kind of summarizes the characters and the components that are covered in this particular lesson. And down here are again just the extra characters. So after this, what I'm going to show next is the first of the modified supplementary slides. And so once we get keep wanting to get this out of the way, but yeah, all right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the extra characters are on this slide. And before I go any further, I want to bring up on I want to make use of the Writing the Ox web application, which there'll be a link to in the description for this class. And if you don't, or there'll be a link to it, like I said. If you ever can't find that link, just remember to go to the mindisbuddha.org website blog, and up at the top menu, there'll be one of the selections will be Writing the Ox, which takes you there. Let me just make it so that this works properly. We're going to be going back and forth a little bit, and I'll put it on. Yeah, select the up in the top. Do I have everything in here that I want? Oh yes, I do. Good. Okay. All right. So the first character is so one of the reasons why I want to do this supplement is I do want to pay a little bit more attention and pay some more spend some more time on these extra characters and how you use them in learning the characters in the 4 great vows. One of the characters that shows up several times in the 4 great vows is this is the character for circle, way. Another one that shows up repeatedly is the character Ren for person. And if you put those 2 together, you get a character that is not in the 4 great vows, but that is useful. If you're learning how to write these characters, it's good to learn how to write them in combinations as components of other characters. And this makes the character Q prisoner. Now, if we go over here to the web application, let's go down to the area down here. Up here, this is the title of the 4 great vows. This is the first vow. This is the second vow. This is the third vow. This is the fourth vow. And everything down here is the so-called extra characters. In the first lesson, there was only one extra character, and this was the character for hand, which in the title to the 4 great vows, just to review, there's two characters that make up the word for vow, which shows up over and over again, uh, reasonably enough, in the Four Great Vows. One of the components of this very complicated character, here's the whole character down here in the lower left, in the green square in the lower left. But in this field in the web application that actually says components of the character, one of those components is this. So I'll click on, and this in the upper field up here now, the character is again displayed. Its pinion, which is show, the locations, which I've kind of only referred to kind of vaguely in the past, um, which you can ignore for now. It tells you that, and it also tells you that this character, which down in if you look in the big green square down the lower left, always shows a large a version of that character. This is really a radical. This is a component form of the character for hand. It's a radical that is contained in all these characters in here. In this field, it says characters that contain show, and the meaning is hand. So this is the radical for the character hand. That was already discussed in the first lecture. Just a very quick recap and get everybody on the same page. Now let's click on the first of the extra characters for this class, and it shows the information, the pinyin, pronunciation, the locations, the meaning, prisoner. In this case, location is undefined because I haven't really filled in that field properly yet in the database. And then it shows you the components. And I just want to make a point of so if you click on these components, one of the things that happens is that over in the big aquamarine field on the right, which has the text that is active at this time, you see every character that contains way is now highlighted. Just to emphasize that this is an important component. And if we go and we if we do the same for back here in the field, what I did was I clicked on this character again. And if I go and I click on this component, the Ren component or person, now every character that has Ren as a component in it is highlighted. But it turns out that there's more than one form of Ren. And so this is only showing the form that looks like the actual character. This is the character Ren. And I just clicked on the animation for it. This button down here is the click to animate button. And this big green square, which is where the larger version of the character is displayed, is also where the animation is displayed when I click the green click here to animate button. So this form of the character Ren is both a standalone character, can appear in a Chinese sentence as an individual character, or it can show up as a component in a character, like it does here. I'm going to start clicking. If I click on, this is the prisoner character again, which I just clicked on. This is the character for calamity, which we haven't gotten to yet. We will get there. The reason why this shows calamity is, click this again. This character, which is the first character in the second vow, which we haven't gotten to yet, has as its first component fire, and fire has Ren as a component. All right, I just want to emphasize that these two components the two components of the character for prisoner are found in many places. And in the case of the character component ren, it actually shows up in multiple different forms. Okay. In fact, now that I'm back on, I'm bringing up the slide again. Here is one place where the character ren shows up. Here is another. Here is another. Here is another. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different places where ren shows up, but it shows up in 3 different forms. There is the form up here where the component looks like the character, and there's these 2 other forms. Well, in this form, this is a, and we'll see in a minute just how common this is. This is the same form. This is yet another form, and this is a very simple character, Shen, which is composed of ren and shi. And usually you do not see Shen on its own. It's usually combined with this other more complicated character that we're not going to talk about, except just to emphasize that Shen is usually found in combination with me to mean what. And so sometimes you'll see that Shen is by itself said to mean what, but it's always found in combination with this other character that we're not going to talk anymore about, except just to. So this is you will run into this character all the time in modern Chinese. It's ubiquitously used in questions. Next, we have another character, Dan, which means only. I've referred to this already, but I didn't assign this as part of the homework for the first lesson. It's composed of ren, again, plus Dan. Notice how this Dan here and the character that it's a component of are both pronounced the same. And it's very often the case that the one of the components of a more complex character will have the pronunciation, that the more complex character, that is, will have the pronunciation of one of its components. Now, sometimes it'll have, almost the same pronunciation, except the tone will be different. And that's very common in Chinese, more complex Chinese characters that have multiple components. One of those components is to determine the pronunciation. This Dan, by the way, is itself a compound character made up with the character of Ri and the character for 1, which is just a single line, Ri plus 1, Yi to make Dan. And you'll notice in this case, neither of these components have anything like the pronunciation of the character that they make up, and yet the meaning of this character Dan is clearly indicated by putting a line under the sun, meaning dawn. So now we've already seen 1 up here with Q, prisoner, Shen, what, and Dan, only. And as I've mentioned, the characters have really been indicating the component, the ren person component in those characters. Now we move on to the next character, which is a new, which is interesting for 2 reasons. One, it has a different form of the ren character as a component, and secondly, this isn't officially the etymology of this word, but in an agricultural society without machines, an ox is worth 10 people. So you take the component for person, combine it with the number 10, which is just a cross. We've run into that a couple times. Well, actually, it's up here again. Um, uh, and you get an ox, especially when it comes to things like pulling a plow. An ox is probably worth more than 10 people, especially if you're one of the people who might have been pulling the plow instead of the ox. So this is the character new for ox. And it's made up again by a different form of the um, uh, component ren, and once again she for 10 here. And the next character has another example of she 10 as a component. This is the character for me, a grain of rice or any kind of grain, or if to refer specifically to uncooked rice. It's made up of 2 strokes on the top. And let's look at that now. In fact, we're going to look at each one of those and each one of these characters a little more closely. A she in the middle and a ba underneath. It's got 2 strokes on top, a cross in the middle, and then 2 legs underneath. So let's look at these 5 characters. We already looked at the first one, which was prisoner. These are pretty. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4 strokes. And then notice how, if you want to learn to write this character, you would take this or something like this and pay attention to where the diagonal lines and the perpendicular lines are in this square, and learn to draw the strokes in relationship to those lines that help orient you in the square. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So, and then ox. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so one thing to note, I said there were 2 things interesting about this character. It's actually an additional thing that's interesting in that if you see, first you draw the character for person, which is like that, and then you draw the character for 10. But they overlap. And this is yet another way of combining characters. In a way, the character for person is on top, but it also overlaps the character for 10, if you can see that. And unfortunately, just to show you one of the limitations of the, and I want to emphasize limitations, the Hanzi Writer JavaScript library is wonderful, but it doesn't have everything in its database. There are people who maintain that, and they do not have a separate entry at this time for this component. Of course, they do have an entry for 10, like that. All right. So the other character that I just went over on the slide was the character for grain, and here it is. You see the 1, 2. That's the ba on top, and then the cross in the middle, and then the ba on the bottom. So this character is made of 2 8s and a 10. An 8 on top, 2, a 10 in the middle, 2, and 2. Anyway, all right. So now let's move along now. So if we look at the characters in this lesson. I am assigning that you actually do the entire character, both of the characters that make up the word for vow, which is a 2-character word. And there's a lot of strokes. It's very complicated. Like that. One of the components, which we talked about last week, was this component right here, which means an axe. Jin meaning is given up here, or the pronunciation and the meaning are given up here. The different characters that this is a component of is given down here, and then how to actually write the character is shown down here. Now, this was covered in the previous lecture. This is one of the characters that was introduced in the second lecture, because this is a character in the first vow. One of its components is this very interesting component, the first component over here in this list on the left side of the screen, where it says the components of the character. This is a radical, a very commonly encountered radical in Chinese, the radical of the character chuo, which is not a particularly commonly encountered character, but it's much more, it's much character for walk. It's much more common to find the radical form than the standalone form, and this is animation of how to draw it. And so if you combine this component with this component, you get this character right here, which is the character for chuo plus the character for Jin. And in this case, this is another example where Jin and Jin, here looking back at the slide now, Jin and its second component, Jin, they're not pronounced exactly the same, because if you see the tone mark on the pinyin is different. And the chuo has no relationship to the actual pronunciation of the character. So this is a character that means close. And just for kicks, I'm not putting it on the homework, but this is the character, or this, oh wait, this is the character for actually far. Let's see, let me mistake in the slide. So I can find it down here because I know that it has, yeah, here it is. This is yuan. Yeah, I hate it when that happens. So I'm going to have to correct this slide. Got the PDF version up here, which I can. Okay, so I'm back. And we were looking at this character here, which I've now corrected on the slide. This is yuan, which means far. And I only wanted to include this in here to contrast it with the character for close. They both contain this component chuo and a fairly simple second component in the case of close. The second component is axe. In the case of far, the second component is currency. Put 3 stars next to this for 2 reasons. One, because I'm not including it in the homework for this lesson. And second, because this is a simplified character. The traditional character for far is actually a little more complicated than this. And we're not going to talk about it. Okay, so where are we? This was here. This was the character for close. And it just has these 2 components. it's interesting to see that the uh, let's look at this in other characters. So you notice there is a possibly a pattern here. This isn't necessarily the best character to pick to investigate this pattern because it takes so long to draw. But look at everything else is being drawn first, and then only at the end this nice chuo component is drawn in. Um, and one thing to remember about chuo is that it tends to uh, uh, surround half of the character, the left half and the bottom half. If we look at, of course, the character for Dao also contains the Chuo component, and again, uh, the, uh, the the right component is drawn first, and then the Chuo is written in. Okay, so let's see. It's neat. Okay, now the next component is this is a nice one, yeah. For shop, the Dian, which is made up of Guang. Uh, so Dian, the character for a shop or a store, is made up of the character Guang for vast and the character Zhan for foretell. And so this is interesting as yet another example of a character that contains ko. This other component is one that we haven't talked about and won't really dwell much on, but it's a character bu, which means divination. This Zhan, and generally speaking, when we see bu in as a component, uh, it gets straightened out so that this little part that comes down here on bu gets perpendicularized to the rest of it. Which is just what it says down here. When used as a component, bu is usually found as this way. And so when that character is drawn, the guang component, the vast component, is drawn first, unlike the chuo component. And also notice that the vast component goes over and to the left, whereas the chuo component goes to the left and then under. All right. There's only one character on this slide, but I want to make sure to pay a little bit of attention to this. This is a character that has two different compositions. On the original version of this slide, I had one composition, and I decided I didn't like that one. And I went and found one that looks more like what the character actually does look like. Now, so the one composition that I didn't like um, is is the second one, what I have now listed as the second one here. Um, but if you look at the way the character is actually, uh, let's see, yeah, drawn, and this one, it's worth making it big. So the left component of this character is the character for rice, and it's compressed so that it fits together in the same square as the rest of it. So first, the left component is drawn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now the two top components, and then the middle part, and then the bottom, which is a component that we've seen before. This is the four little legs at the bottom, which means fire. Now, if you look at the animation again, you can see that, and I'm going to make this big now. Okay, you can see that the characters, that the components, uh, uh, you can easily see them as distinct parts of the character, and they are drawn separately. So that one of the general rules is that if if you if there is uh, the components that make up a character that has multiple components are each drawn, all the strokes are completed in that component before moving on to another component. Uh, so first we have the character for Ba, then the character for Wang, which is a king, and then the component for Huo, fire, underneath. I'm gonna highlight this here, here we go, and then I'm gonna run that animation again while trying to keep this highlighted. There. First, Ba, then Wang, king, Ba 8, then Wang, king, and then Huo, fire. Anyway, all right. So sometimes these decompositions are not necessarily agreed upon by everybody. This is the final slide for the supplementary. This also has something I need to clarify from the lecture, but I'll get to that in a second. This is a nice character. So I wanted to include this character because it contains the component neon for 20 up here. That's kind of the top of the character. Going down, then you have a line, Yi 1. At the base, but not quite at the bottom, you have this Yo, which is a character that means cause, and then down at the bottom you have the legs that are down there that make up that are from the character Ba, the component Ba. Now, where is this? This is right here. Now, that's the 20 component. That's the Yi component. This is the Yo component, and then the Ba component. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to take a minute to look at this is that this character Huang for yellow, looks like, and sometimes it's mistaken for, and I think I did mistake it for in the lecture. It kind of looks like one of the components for the character for Han, as in Han Chinese. So this, which is here, this is the Yellow River. This is the 2-character word for the Yellow Emperor, a famous mythological character in Chinese history and Chinese cosmology. But so this character is a component in both of these, but it is not the same as this character here, which is a component in the character for Han, which is made up of the character for Shui. This is a radical for water, which we will talk about, and the character for Qin for clay. And so this is the point of this right here, which is that Huang is not equal to Qin. They're separate characters. Now, the last character in the supplement is a very simple one. Right here, gong or work. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And in a preview of things to come, you'll see that when I clicked on gong, that 2 other extra characters also lit up down here. See, This is the character for sutra, and this is the character for emptiness. And therefore, gong is certainly a good character and component to know if you're interested in the kind of Chinese that if it is of interest to Buddhists, because gong is a component in the word for sutra. Here's the word for sutra, and the word for emptiness, shunyata. So anyway, thanks for listening, and I'll see you at the third lecture, which is on when is the third lecture? The third lecture, bring up my calendar, is on January 7th. So see you then.